You are Locked On Bruins Postcast, part of Locked On Sports Los Angeles on the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Fours up, Bruin Nation. What is going on? And welcome back to the latest edition of the Locked On UCLA Postcast. Coming at you live, as always, after every single UCLA football game, right here live on the Locked On UCLA YouTube channel and after the fact, both on the channel and wherever the heck you get the Locked On UCLA audio podcast feed. If you don't know who I am, what's going on, everybody? My name is Gavin Carlson. Spent 4 years covering UCLA football, men's and women's basketball with the Daily Bruin. Class of 2024, was born and raised a Bruin, and now am an alumni who, like you, is frustrated after another rough loss for our UCLA football Bruins. Just absolutely pummeled in Columbus, as everyone expected, but that doesn't make it any better watching UCLA fall 48-10 to arguably the best team in the country in Ohio State. The Big Ten is brutal, and we are learning it when you play Indiana in Indiana, a game you're expected to lose by $1 billion, and you do, and you play at Ohio State in a game where you're expected to lose by $1 billion, and you do. For those who might not be aware or wondering why the heck I'm wearing a tie-dye shirt, I was actually fortunate enough to go to the UCLA-Arizona basketball game yesterday at Intuit Dome. Obviously a rough loss for our Bruins, but for those who know, I live in the Bay Area. It was nice to fly down, go watch that game. Was able to get one of those shirts that they were giving out to the students in the student section. Rest in peace, Bill Walton. Obviously, this is a homage to him. So, obviously, Zach's got all you need to know on this channel about the men's basketball team, the women's basketball team. But ironically, you sit here and you kind of get, when you watch the UCLA men's basketball team do what it did yesterday, where they fall just short to a top 5 team in Arizona, and they fall just short, or really could have won that game against a top 5 team, and you're left there being disappointed that you didn't win. Meanwhile, you turn one day later, literally 24 hours later, and there's never even a doubt on whether UCLA football is going to compete with the top 5 football team, right? Like, it's just kind of funny looking at the two programs and how different they are, in that the expectation when it comes to basketball is at the very least be competitive, but really beat a top 5 team in Arizona. Meanwhile, we're coming in this game, and if you go on the Instagram right now or the Twitter for UCLA and you read the comments, it's just jokes from UCLA fans saying, we scored a touchdown and a field goal. Wow, like more than I expected. Obviously, kind of sarcasm, kind of depression, but nobody expected anything coming into this game, even when it was not yet announced that Nico Iamaleava was not going to play this game. Obviously, Ohio State, probably the best team in the country, reigning national champions. They're just so darn talented in every aspect. We got absolutely ran through, offensively with the running game and the passing game. Julian Sayin, I don't think he's a Heisman Trophy guy, in my opinion. But again, in a game like this, he does just what you need him to do. 23 of 31, 184 and a touchdown. But just the efficiency of the run game, 33 carries for 222 yards for Ohio State. Bo Jackson, not that one, 15 for 112 and a tud. Isaiah West, 8 for 61 and a tud. James Peoples, 6 for 42 and 2 tuds. Meanwhile, you flip things, UCLA without Nico, Luke Duncan goes 16 of 23, 154 and a touchdown. But again, as we often see when you play elite teams, it's just the run game for UCLA that just completely disappears. 25 carries for 68 yards. One more time. 25 carries for 68 yards. We're not even talking about it's like 2.5 yards a carry almost exactly. And it doesn't take the stats to know how bad the running game was. If you watch this game, you saw UCLA get stuffed on multiple 3rd and shorts, 4th and shorts. Obviously at this point the game is over, but it's, when it's 27-0 late in, the first half, that is, and you have a 4th and short and you get stuffed, right? It's just frustrating. It really is. Obviously, when you don't have a run game, there's punts getting blocked. There's 4 punts to start the game, and then you have the punt block. So you don't really do anything offensively. Just let's put it this way. You had 1 first down, I believe, in the entire first half, maybe 2. 1 or 2 first downs in the entire first half. Everyone's going to say, Luke Duncan, ooh, he was kind of efficient. Some people are going to say, ooh, he didn't actually make an impressive throw all game. I'm kind of somewhere in between. He had the 51-yarder to Rico Flores, obviously, in terms of that padding his stat line. Outside of that, 15 completions for less than 100 yards. There was one point in this game, I believe at halftime, where Luke Duncan was 8 of 13 for 32 yards. That means he's averaging less than or exactly 4 yards a completion, less than 3 yards a pass attempt. Like, just absolutely, no explosiveness from the offense. And it's not surprising. My bigger question, it's not about Luke Duncan. I'm not here to watch this game to analyze Luke Duncan if he's the future of UCLA at quarterback or anything like that. No offense to him. I'm watching this game to see Jerry Neuheisel, the guy who a few weeks ago we were calling the truth, calling, the future OC, if not some people calling for him to be the head coach. I was never calling for him to be the head coach. I thought that was, just way too, recency bias, getting way too excited after a couple wins. But I was someone, I'll be honest, that was saying, I'm ready for Jerry to be the offensive coordinator. You got to get it done now before a big program comes in. Well, a game like this against Ohio State, you're not expecting UCLA to score 28 points. You're not expecting Luke Duncan to throw for 300 yards. You're not really expecting, to run for 4 yards a carry. But my question is, the expectations are already low, and yet Jerry, did he, failed to exceed even the lowest expectations, right? We didn't even run for 3 yards a carry. We couldn't even complete 20 passes, despite everything being a check down, despite averaging 4 yards of completion for basically the entire, get a couple deep plays at the end. And these are the moments where you test the true mind and ability of an offensive coordinator. It's not when you've got Nico Iamaleava, who turns every long extended play into a 10-yard scramble. Nico, who turns every 3rd and short, 4th and short into a read option, QB power, where the defense has to consider all 11 guys on the field. You take away the rushing ability of Nico, what would this offense look like? That was the question coming in. And of course, it's a rough test against Ohio State. I think it would be more interesting. Obviously, we're not hoping that's the case against Washington in the next game, but it would be interesting to see against a quality Big Ten team like Washington, but not the best team in the country like Ohio State, what Jerry Neuheisel could scheme up with the quarterback who isn't doing it all on his own. Because let's be honest, outside of some portions of the Penn State game, outside of some portions of the Michigan State game, since then, all of the success that UCLA's offense has had has primarily been a couple big long runs from Anthony Frias or something like that, but mainly Nico, right? Scrambling, doing things off schedule, not doing things on schedule. And part of that is his fault. There's been plenty of plays where there's been guys open 15, 20 yards down the field on the sideline. Nico's overthrown him. 15, 20 yards down the field across the middle. He threw it a little bit late or a little bit early or a little bit too far ahead or a little high, right? Part of that is on Nico. His pocket passing has not been very great since those first 2 wins in a row we had against Penn State and Michigan State, right? Even the Maryland game was pretty ugly. A couple picks. He got hurt, but it was his scrambling ability, his kind of off-schedule ability that stole another win and made Jerry look like a decent offensive coordinator for another week. Well, guess what? We feel very far removed from that right now because this is the hardest test possible for Jerry, but you have to say he kind of failed in terms of scheming anything, right? There were not open guys in the first half. It's not like, oh, UCLA was getting down in the red zone and they couldn't convert and they couldn't turn field goals into touchdowns, or, oh, they were driving and then they fumbled, or they were driving and then they got sacked. Yes, the one thing he deserves credit for, no sacks. No sacks in this ballgame. And that is because I'm not going to, I don't want to be mean to the offensive line, but we know that this offensive line has been awful, and we certainly know they didn't somehow stuff, Ohio State's pass rush. What happened was you get the ball out quickly, and quite honestly, you don't run many plays, so you don't give Ohio State many opportunities to get a sack because it's 3-and-out punt. No opportunity to even record a sack if you're Ohio State, but still, that's maybe the one thing you give Jerry credit for. He managed to keep his quarterback pretty clean in this game, but obviously, what did you sacrifice? You sacrificed any sort of explosiveness, any sort of deep plays. It's a bunch of checkdowns, it's a bunch of runs for nothing. And the biggest criticism against Jerry is, man, there's quite a frequent issue in terms of these 3rd and shorts, 4th and shorts not being converted, right? It feels like outside of Nico having a read option or two that's been successful, these 3rd and shorts, 4th and shorts have been killer for UCLA to the point where a game or two ago, you have to resort to a fake punt in order to get a 4th and 2 conversion inside your own 30. Down multiple scores already. You can't even do it with your offense. There's just no confidence there. And of course, the offensive line is the biggest culprit. But Jerry Neuheisel, who we were just praising 3-4 weeks ago for direct snaps to the running back and putting guys in motion and crossing routes across the middle with guys wide open, some fancy rollouts that you haven't really seen in a while from UCLA, all that has worn off. And now I'm not going to use a rough game against Ohio State to say Jerry certainly should not get the OC job, but with more rumors going out there that there's a Jed Fish or, someone like that, obviously that would mean more Jerry, no more Jerry. Honestly, my biggest conclusion from a game like this and from what we've seen in recent games is I wouldn't be as heartbroken if Jerry Neuheisel was not on the coaching staff as I would have imagined I would be 3 weeks ago if I said that, right? If 3 weeks ago, you said Jerry's not going to be a part of UCLA's coaching staff, there would be people rioting, right? But I think now we're all ready to say, hey, if we really want to be competitive, would I like Jerry to still be around? Of course. He's one of the most true blue Bruins we've ever had, right? But let's be honest, if you're bringing in a new head coach that's any sort of serious, he's going to want his guy, and it won't be Jerry. And I just think now that was kind of a dilemma that UCLA fans were having. Right now, I think we can all kind of agree that if we go get a great head coach and it means Jerry is not on the staff anymore, I think he would take that. Tim Skipper, not much else needs to be said. He's done his job in terms of he got UCLA a couple memorable wins, that fun 3-game stretch when no one expected it. But I don't think I certainly never at any point thought that Tim Skipper was going to be the future head coach of UCLA. And, games like this just about confirm it. Not going to say at all that Tim Skipper should be criticized for losing by 38 to Ohio State with the team that started the season 0-4. But look, he's not going to be the head coach of UCLA next year. And games like this just confirm that. When we come back from the break, obviously the big news going around UCLA outside of this game, outside of Nico, it's the potential move to SoFi. And there's plenty of people, right? From media pundits to UCLA alumni that are 40, 50, 60, 70 years old, who their opinions are just as, if not more important than mine. But I want to provide a different perspective as someone who just graduated in 2024, who sat in the press box at the Rose Bowl as a journalist, but also was a part of the den, was sitting in the front row, was painting my stomach, with the colors blue and yellow. I have every angle on the Rose Bowl. From my perspective, I want to provide my opinion on what a potential move to SoFi would look like, why it could work, why it very well could not work. We'll get to all that after our break here on the Locked On UCLA Postcast. Now, on this Saturday, today's show is brought to you by DoorDash. It's the weekend. It's time to look back and crown this week's MVP on Who Delivered, powered by DoorDash. Just like you can win every Saturday with DoorDash Streaks, saving more every time you order. These players delivered when it mattered most. Let's break it down. Look, for Ohio State, there's a bunch of guys you could say, right? Julian Sayin, very efficient, as he always is. Look, Jeremiah Smith actually surprisingly did not have a huge game, which is very, very surprising. A couple of ways you go with this one, but I am going to give it to Bo Jackson. Maybe I'm getting a little too running back biased the last couple of weeks. Obviously was praising Emmett Johnson for Nebraska and everything, but we are going to go with the run game of Ohio State and specifically Bo Jackson. Again, 15 carries, 112 yards, and a touchdown. When the pressure was on, he came through, even though there wasn't much pressure, no hesitation, no delay. And if you've been watching this team, it's not a surprise that they ran all over us. Just like he delivered for Ohio State, DoorDash delivers your Saturdays with DoorDash Streaks. You save every Saturday you order, stack it up all season, and you could save up to $250, including $100 in DoorDash credits. Order this Saturday. Keep the streak alive. Fuel your game day only with DoorDash. Terms apply. Promo period through November 18th, which is coming up. So make sure you take advantage. Today's show also brought to you by FanDuel. Look, we love college football. We love college basketball. We love the NFL. But hey, the NBA is back. And there's no better place to get in on the action than FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Even if you missed the start of the game or want to ride the hot hand, FanDuel has live bets on everything from who will score the next who will score next to fourth quarter comebacks. Plus, you can even combine your live bets into a same game parlay for a shot at a bigger payout. It keeps every game exciting, especially when your team's making that late push. So right now, FanDuel is giving new customers $300 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. Head to FanDuel.com to sign up and play your game with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Back here live on the Locked On UCLA Bruins postcast. UCLA 10, Ohio State 48. The defending national champions at home, under the lights, against a bad Bruin team. And it went just about as we all expected. Again, Luke Duncan, did he do anything horrible? No. No turnovers. Didn't get sacked. Did complete a touchdown, obviously, or throw a touchdown. Obviously pretty efficient, 16 of 23. But outside of a 51-yard gain, the guy was, throwing for 5 yards, a completion for most of the game. A lot of checkdowns, getting the ball out of his hands quickly, which is what you have to do when you're significantly outmatched talent-wise. But still, would have liked to see a little bit more from Jerry in terms of some, effectiveness, especially on third and short, fourth and short a couple times. Defensively, we didn't even really talk about it that much. But, what is there to say? Like, this team scored 27 points in the first half, and Jeremiah Smith didn't even do, probably had one of his worst games of the season. You finally go down and score a touchdown, and then you give up a 100-yard kick return. So all three phases got dominated in this one. There's not much else that needs to be said there. Where I do want to end the show is talking about the potential move to SoFi. Of course, if you're on this planet, you've heard by now that there is a very decent chance that UCLA will be playing at SoFi next season. Obviously, a whole bunch of legal battles that are going to go on. $60 to $80 million is the reported buyout, as if UCLA has more money to spend on buyouts. Don't get me started. But I just want to provide my opinion as someone who, again, just graduated, spent 4 years alternating between covering games with this team and also being in the student section in row one, paint on my stomach, going crazy, right? All of that. I put out a couple tweets, some of them, a lot of feedback, both positive and negative. My opinion is the same as it was a couple shows ago. It felt like 3 or 4 weeks ago I was having this conversation. And the one thing I will keep saying that I think is the only thing that nobody else has been saying with this potential move. Yes, people have called SoFi lifeless. I'm a Rams fan. I like SoFi. I think it's an unbelievable venue. I've been for games. I've been for concerts. It's unbelievable. Does it feel like a college stadium? Not at all. But my biggest concern is, what is UCLA football's brand other than the Rose Bowl? I keep saying that. And that's the thing that people don't want to talk about or don't want to admit because they feel like they're being offensive to their alma mater that we all love. I was sitting there singing the alma mater in Intuit Dome yesterday after a rough loss against Arizona, and I'm looking to my left, I'm looking to my right, and I'm like, this is special, right? Being with students, former, current. But then you think about the traditions that I, as someone in the den, took part in, roll call at UCLA basketball games, things like that. For football, what is it? It's always just been the Rose Bowl. The Rose Bowl beat SC. The Rose Bowl beat SC, right? No one's going to be saying that about SoFi. The tailgating scene at the Rose Bowl, 10 times better than the tailgating scene at SoFi. In terms of traditions or anything else related to the UCLA football program, what do we have? We don't, rub a Bruin statue when we walk out onto the field. We don't, have the same walkout every year. Every year at the Rose Bowl would be in a different corner. We'd be trying new things. They'd come out the middle. They'd come out the corner. When it was Deshaun Foster, they'd play, Dr. Dre, and you try to come out and make it look like we had any sorts of aura, and then we go out and lose by 3 touchdowns. There's never been a consistent tradition with UCLA football that's lasted more than 5 years. And so, yes, moving to SoFi might give the program an opportunity to think of stuff, right? You instantly move into one of the best venues any college football team will play at. And I get it. Outside of the drive, which we know, I'm not even going to waste time talking about the drive. I get it. Instead of it being an hour from Westwood, it's like 30 minutes. In my opinion, if I'm getting in a car and I already know I'm driving 30 minutes, I don't think another 30 minutes is really that big of a deal, especially if at the Rose Bowl, I know I'm also going to tailgate for 2-3 hours longer than if I was going to SoFi. I don't think there's going to be much of a tailgating scene at SoFi. That's just my opinion, though. I know other people disagree. I know there's plenty of students who wouldn't make a drive if it's an hour that are going to make a drive if it's 30. That's fair. But me personally, and I think a lot of people agree, if you're already going to be on the LA freeway for 30, 35 minutes trying to get to SoFi on a game day, 40 minutes with, traffic once you try to get into the darn stadium, you might as well drive the extra 20 minutes and get to the Rose Bowl. That's just my opinion. Other people are going to disagree. But once you get there, how is it going to be different? You instantly move into one of the best venues in college football in terms of state-of-the-art technology, best scoreboard, amazing, acoustic, everything, beautiful. But you lose the tradition. And you're already a team that left the Pac-12 for the Big Ten. A lot of critical people there. Now you're moving out of the Rose Bowl, which is arguably one of the most iconic venues in all of sports. Again, when you open up the college football video game, when you ask a national media person who's not engraved in UCLA culture, when they go to a UCLA football game, other than our jerseys, other than maybe bringing up Terry Donahue, rightfully so, bringing up Troy Aikman, rightfully so, maybe a Jackie Robinson mention here or there, rightfully so, what's the only other thing that they talk about? The Rose Bowl, the most beautiful venue, those mountains, the sunset. It's always perfect weather, right? You lose all of that. And we're going to go deeper and deeper if we're at SoFi. With each year that goes by, it's 1 year further removed from the glory days with Terry Donahue, the glory days with Troy Aikman, the glory days. The further you get away from that, the better chance. I get it. There's a better chance that UCLA is going to make more money. You got suites now, more than you had. I get it. But you know what else you have? You have a program that, as much as we don't want to admit it, already doesn't have the greatest traditions, the greatest reputation. And now you take away the only thing that we have. And as we get further from those glory days, we're just going to feel like UNLV playing at Allegiant Stadium where, hey, it's a really nice stadium and there's not many people in there and there's no culture at all. And that's what I fear. Now, is there a scenario where, because it's closer, instead of there being 2,000 fans or 2,000 students and 30,000 fans in there, that are actually UCLA fans, even less, let's be honest, maybe there's 45,000, 50,000, especially because it's the first year and they want to see what SoFi's like. Sure. That's a possibility. But guess what? The wins have to follow, right? Because the Rose Bowl is the Rose Bowl, there are people who have been fans of UCLA that have had season tickets to go to the Rose Bowl for decades that were going whether the team was winning or not because they love that darn venue. I don't know how many people are going to be going to SoFi Stadium regardless of the product on the field, because then there's nothing UCLA about it. And it's just watching bad football with a team that happens to be wearing our helmet, our jerseys, our beautiful helmet, right? But I think it's a riskier thing than our AD and our chancellor think it is in terms of the fan sentiment. There's really a scenario where the fans, the ones that were making the drive to the Rose Bowl, let's not forget about all the people closer to Pasadena that now are not going to go to SoFi. There's a scenario where you're relying, hey, we're closer to campus. Well, guess what? Instead of there being a couple thousand students that go to games, there need to be 5,000, 10,000 students going to the Rose Bowl, or else it might look, going to SoFi, or else it might look even more empty than the Rose Bowl. Are they going to put up banners, tarps to cover a third of the stadium like they do at the Rose Bowl? I don't think so. I don't think I've ever seen an indoor stadium or a closed stadium have tarps. Right. Obviously, the tarps were not up at the Rose Bowl for the rain. They were up to, have less empty seats, but still. You move from a venue that holds 90,000, but then with the tarps holds like 65 to a venue that holds 80,000 and isn't going to have tarps? Or are you going to put tarps inside of a closed roof stadium? I don't know. But again, someone who loves SoFi, I think it's amazing. I think there's a chance. I think there's a 30% chance that this absolutely knocks it out of the park. It is such a win. It's so much closer to campus that students are going there, whether the team's any good. The sororities and the frats don't just leave at halftime like they always do right now at the Rose Bowl. And you get some more local west side of LA high schools and middle schools to go to the games, and not just the ones that are willing to make the drive over to the Rose Bowl. Sure. But there's also, in my opinion, the 60 to 70% chance that just about the same amount of students go, maybe a few more until the team's still losing. And oh, by the way, now the loyal season ticket holders that love the Rose Bowl, they don't go anymore. That's a real possibility. And I just don't know if that possibility, or that the possibility of things work out is great enough. The risk, I don't know if it equals the reward. I think it might be riskier than people realize. That's just my opinion. I want to hear yours. Let me know in the comment section. But we're going to wrap this one up. Shout out to everybody in here. Leave a comment, leave a like as always. Shout out to Zach for holding it down as he does as well. We'll be back here for the final 2 games of the season. Let's beat Washington. Let's beat USC. I still think there's nothing I saw today that does not make me think we can win either, if not both of those games with a healthy Nico. We'll see if that happens. But for now, have a great rest of your Saturday. I'll be back here live on this podcast network, but on the Locked On Rams YouTube channel for the Rams Squad Show after tomorrow's game. Have a great rest of your weekend, everybody. And give me a hate clap. Even though we lost in basketball yesterday, even though we lost in football, it's always a great day to be alive and be a Bruin. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. UCLA. UCLA. Fight, fight, fight. Screw Arizona. Screw SC. We'll be okay. Take care. 4's up and go